Mindy Kaling shared Meghan's great tip when it comes to entertaining. And as you can imagine, it's as pretentious and out of touch as you might think. It just doesn't seem like Meghan Markle is getting any sort of break here. As ever is a disaster. And then you have her upcoming series. And I think the big problem with it will always be is that Meghan Markle lives in a $15 million mansion. And I think she has no clue what real life is like for the average person. And from what we can tell so far, that is definitely going to be the case. In fact, there's a very funny picture that Time magazine included in this article right after Mindy Kaling said, well, Megan's not fussy. She's very down to earth and shows the most fussy and over the top image of a party I have ever seen. And I think that bears the problem. I think Meghan Markle has no idea what the average person goes through. And I think she has become so inflated in her ego that she's going to portray this series. And I think people are really going to resent her for it. And it just doesn't seem like any of this is going to play very well. You add on the brand chaos and Meghan steamrolling small businesses for her own. And I just don't see Ever After or With Love Meghan being the slam dunk that she thinks it is. So we are going to look at this story today because I found it rather illuminating. You'll see why that's funny in a bit. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany and I provide compelling royal commentary. So guys, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. Get all the latest as we move towards With Love Meghan release, the As Ever brand release, which Meghan Markle revealed a mood board today. And I'm like, Meghan Markle, that is the dullest mood board I've ever seen. She's really not as creative or interesting as she thinks she is. And the longer this goes on, the more that becomes abundantly apparent. And so I just thought, though, we need to talk about this Mindy Kaling thing because when I read through it, I was like, Mindy, do you know how that sounds? Do you have any idea how that sounds? Because it really doesn't sound very good. And to me, it seems like these are two women who live these, you could say, outrageous, glamorous lifestyles who really have no idea what the average mother goes through and have no idea how the average person lives. And it's just a very brief interaction. We don't know the full context, but it's something I had been thinking about because I think the great challenge for Meghan Markle in this series is that she lives this very luxurious lifestyle and she loves this very luxurious lifestyle. And the challenge she has is trying to bring that luxury down to a level where everybody can get something from it. And I just didn't see it here because the suggestion you could say is illuminating. I would argue it's incredibly disappointing and boring and something either people know or don't know and goes along with sort of lifestyle choices too. It just doesn't make a ton of sense, especially when you hear the context of their episode and you're going to go, that was her advice? And you just got to wonder too, that's what Mindy Kaling took from their interaction. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I did, guys, decide to I'm going to try to hide the little bit of, you can say, fun in the corner there. But I did decide to just go with what I had pulled on Twitter because it's just a short article, but it has a couple of things that we need to focus on. So it says Mindy Kaling on making a show about the famous, dysfunctional, extremely wealthy family that owns the Lakers. So she is promoting her own show. She was previously on The Office. And they asked her about Meghan Markle. It says, how did you come to appear on Meghan Markle's new show? I was on maternity leave with my daughter in March and April, and Meghan texted me that she was doing a show where she was going to cook for her friends. Would I want to come to Montecito and have her cook for me? I wanted to get taken care of in that moment of my life. That was a fun maternity leave field trip. Now, number one, I just got to wonder, Mindy Kaling has millions of dollars. Is she not being taken care of one way or another? I'm sure she can hire a chef. I'm sure she can hire help. I'm sure she has a lot of things. So to me, if this was an average mom, then I'd go, yeah, this makes sense. For me, though, for Mindy Kaling to go, oh, I was on maternity leave. And I understand shows have schedules, but the thing about Hollywood is their schedule tends to be very flexible. So it's like that she was on maternity leave. I'm like, were you really just on maternity leave or was just between projects? Like, what does this mean? And then you have the addition of, well, it was just a fun maternity leave field trip. And I'm like, you probably live in a multi-million-dollar mansion. You could do anything. You could travel anywhere. Like some aspects of Hollywood jobs can be done from anywhere. So I just was like, okay. And then she says, and I left with a basket of fresh produce and homemade jam. For Megan jam and hot sauce because she knew I loved hot sauce. She's a very generous woman who knew I needed a break. And again, that's nice, but it would actually be, I think, more interesting in many ways for Meghan Markle to actually help a mom who really needs a break. Mindy Kaling again has all the resources in the world to give herself a break. So I feel like it's sort of out of touch, but it gets better. It gets better. So next we have, did you pick up any hosting tips? And she says, spoiler alert, I did. The theme was throwing a party for children. All right. So keep that in mind. I love cooking, but I'm really not good at entertaining. I don't know anything about how you're not supposed to use overhead lighting when people come over. You're supposed to use little lamps. I read that and I'm thinking to myself, I don't think my eyes could roll hard enough because that just sounds so ridiculous to me. Now, to be fair, some people prefer lamps to light their home. I understand that. But I think what I'm getting at here is that if you have a home and you have people over, don't use the lighting that you can flick with a switch. Oh, no, no, no. You're supposed to get lamps and dot them all around the room. And then figure out how to turn them all on and off while also getting totally ready for your party. I feel like this is a very out of touch thing to suggest because I'm like, you're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. But I don't even have a lamp plugged in right now, guys. I have no lamp. I feel like, especially for young people, we don't really have lamps. Like, I don't have lamps. Like, I even found the lamp beside it's my bed annoying. Like, I just don't really have lamps. And so this whole idea that we're supposed to get super excited about, oh, you're not supposed to use overhead lighting. It's like, well, do people have time to set up a million little lamps? Do they have to go out and buy a bunch of little lamps? I don't think little lamps would work for something like a Super Bowl party. Now, if you're doing an event with adults, maybe. But again, think of the tip here in the context of the episode is about parties for children. Parties for children. And are we supposed to use little lamps with parties with children? I believe children are known for knocking things over by accident, sometimes on purpose. So I feel like having lamps as your sole lighting for a party with children is probably a pretty bad idea. Now, to be fair, we don't know the full context, so it could have been in the context of an adult party, but it's still odd to me. So yeah, you can use lamps and stuff, but I mean, it depends on how much light a lamp is giving off. Are you going for a super romantic feel, or is this just a general dinner with friends? Are we doing a bunch of candles? Like, there's just so many questions here. But what I get the sense of is that this, I feel like, is really out of touch. I don't feel like most people, if they're planning a party, the number one thing on their priority list is lighting. That feels very Hollywood. That feels like a wealthy lady who lunches problem, not an average person problem. If I was holding a party, the last thing I would think about is lighting. Literally the last thing I would think about. I don't have outlets close to where even my end table is. Like, I can't even think of in my living room how lighting with lamps would even be all that feasible, to be quite honest. I think it depends on the setup. Like, I think new homes with the more open layout setup, it would be much harder to light with lamps. This feels to me like a very wealthy elitist problem. Very wealthy elitist problem is to think about lighting during an event. I would be more concerned about food. Where are people going to park so they don't annoy the neighbors? What music are we going to play? What games are we going to play? Are there different things we're going to do? Those are the things I would think about. Whether or not I have overhead lighting is not the thought. Although I will have to say, you can't help but wonder if some of the reason for not overhead lighting is so you can better take selfies. That seems to be the issue because overhead lighting is not very flattering for pictures. And I totally get that. But I don't like it either when things are too dark. I actually prefer a lot of light. I think again that's somewhat a preference thing. Not saying if you like lamps and that's all you use in your house, hey, that's your prerogative. But I feel like for most people, a light switch is much more convenient than trying to go and turn on a lamp. And think about this for like a young mom. I was thinking about this. You're a young mom and you light your house with lamps because Meghan Markle told you need lamps for parties. So you just put the lamps there all the time. So you're ready for the party. And you need to turn on the lights, but you've decided you like the lamps and you're going over and trying to turn on all the little lamps while your kids are screaming and everything. Doesn't seem like a totally bright idea. This to me seems like an issue somebody who has a staff planning the party, they get to think about. And they get to tell people where to put all the lamps. And then they get to have a bunch of people turn the lamps on. I mean, imagine going around, especially in a house her size, going on and turning on all those lamps. And that's going to take a while. I feel like logistically that might be somewhat a good piece of advice for certain parties. It's definitely not something for everyone because she says here specifically when people come over. So does it mean when anybody comes by you're supposed to turn off the overhead and go with lamps? Like that's dumb. That's really dumb. And so I feel like here to me I just don't see the point of that, to be quite honest. And some people have told me, hey, this piece of advice has been around for a long time. Because that's the other thing Meghan Markle's struggle with is that she's doing something that's been done for ages and much better for ages. Does she have anything new or interesting or unique to offer? And I don't see any of that here. There's nothing unique or interesting or illuminating, you could say, about you must use little lamps. And to think about it, she's saying specifically not just lamps, but little lamps. So I wish it had snowed here today. So I wish I could have gone over to my parents' house because they have these little lights now that they can plug in and charge. And so they're kind of excited about it, like these little lamps. And so you're supposed to get those little ones and set them everywhere. And that's going to take a while. I did a whole setup, guys, for a cursed tiara video and for a haunted royal video that I did. I think I just posted it for members. And I set up all the little candles everywhere. That took forever. And then I had to turn them all off. That took a long time. And if I'm throwing a party, that's not the thing I'm going to be focusing on. Yes, might a light or two be helpful? Sure. But am I going to care that much about lamps versus overhead lighting? No, I'm not. I'm really not. Especially if somebody's just coming over casually. Am I gonna go out and buy a lamp just for a casual visitor? No. And I still don't even know where I would put it in my house to actually make it effective lighting, to be quite honest. And that's the thing. I feel like this is very out of touch. I'd have to do one of those charging lamps to actually have a lamp near my couch because of how my place is set up. Otherwise, I'd have a big extension cord running over the ground. Who wants to see that? Now, some people, if you're build a house yourself, you're able to put actual outlets in the floor, but not everybody has that. So I'm not sure who is supposed to be all that enthused about this advice. That's not that exciting. That's not even that good. It's very out of touch. But it goes on. And she says, but Megan just knows how to do that stuff. Oh, she's so glorious. For kids' parties, I usually just go to the party supply store and get paper things like normal people. Normal people do that, which I don't judge, and neither does she, which I'm sure she actually does judge you if you go to a party supply store and get the normal things normal human beings do. But it was fun to learn simple ways to do a homemade kids' party. That does sound fun. But if you're a working mom, do you have the time to do a homemade kids party? And at the end of the day, does it matter really that it's homemade? Or does it matter the time you put in and spending time with your family? Spending time with your family means more than making sure it's like perfectly homemade. So I really do think Megan, though, judges you for going to the party supply store. And Mindy actually sounds quite normal for going to a party supply store and getting party supplies for a party. Believe that's how most normal people do it. Now, again, if there was a specific situation and I wanted to do something more homemade, like I would do it, but that would be a personal choice because you have to spend time to do that. That can be a long time. And so it just might some of this might be good, but guys, my overall sense here is that this is going to be very out of touch normal person. I could be totally wrong. If I'm wrong, I will say so. But what I see here is people who are sort of disconnected from the average person experience because Hollywood lives in a bubble. And I feel like some people have more connection to the normal world than others. So if you are more in the Hollywood bubble, you would think all this is fine because you have staff, your friends have staff, everybody's has staff. But if you have a connection to the average person, you might think to yourself, I know my sister is enjoys throwing parties and she throws great parties, but she's not going to buy lamps. She can't buy lamps. She doesn't have the budget for it. She doesn't have the home setup for it. She doesn't have the time to set up little lamps everywhere. And I think that's something where it's good to think about. And it just says you're not supposed to use overhead lighting when people come over. Not just that, hey, in certain situations, you can use this particular setup. No, every time somebody comes over, you should not use overhead lighting. I don't think that's a piece of advice most people want. But it gets even funnier. Gets even funnier. So it says, I think a misconception about Meghan is that she's in any way fussy or has expectations of fanciness. She really is a down to earth person who knows a lot of fun tricks to make entertaining and cooking easier. And then, as if Time magazine also knew how wrong that statement was, this is the picture they decided to put with that statement. Now, I could be totally wrong here, but to me, this looks fussy, over the top, and not down to earth, including the women in their outfits that I'm sure cost thousands of dollars. This perfectly made up gazebo for like a tea time that I'm sure has teapots and everything that cost hundreds of dollars. Everything in there, I'm sure costs hundreds of dollars or thousands. The balloons, the drapery of the like the branches here and everything. I'm sure many of you love your kids. Are you doing that for your kids for their birthdays? Do you have time to do something like that? Or does that look totally out of touch, ridiculous, over the top, and completely and utterly not something you know anybody would do? Now, I do know people who actually really do enjoy hosting and probably go a little bit over the top on things. I totally see that. But this is just really over the top. It's sort of kind of insane. And it's just so funny juxtaposed with that she's not fussy or has no expectations of fanciness. And I believe that is both fancy and fussy. So, yeah, that doesn't totally work. So, what can we all learn and discern from this? Because there's so much going on. And I think the overall thing is I think Megan's gonna fall into the trap of living too much in her bubble and not making it applicable to average people. And there was sort of an interesting thing, and I might do a whole different video on this because I think it really does deserve its own video. But like the identity crisis of Megan, she doesn't know who she is. So she's doing super fancy, and then she's looking like she's squatting in a bush. And she's kind of going between these personas because she's trying so hard to please everyone. In the process, she pleases no one. And that's the problem with somebody who doesn't have a vision, who's not committed to the vision and doesn't really believe in it. I don't think she believes in As Ever. I don't think she believes in the show, really. She just wants the cash grab and she's just thinking, well, lifestyle brands make money, so I will do a lifestyle brand. Because if she was really passionate about elevating every person, and I mean, this is just a bit from Mindy, we don't know all the context and everything, but I think she should be much better at trying to identify things that the average person can elevate. It can't just be mint in your hot chocolate or something. That's not really elevating. That's just adding a spice or whatever to what you're doing. She needs to do more than she is. And this new thing she put up on her Instagram, I think leaves a lot to be desired. Because I keep waiting for more. And this is the lame thing we get. Farm fresh eggs, carrots 2 ways, sweet treats. Stay close to people who feel like sunshine. And she says, from memory lane to memories I'm making today. I'm sorry, but this is lame. This is totally self aggrandizingly lame. And she has like things we know because she couldn't use her original logo. She has her new logo, her new brand, and a new topper because she can't use her own one, a new ribbon because she can't use the old one she initially thought. She's doing raspberry spread, something so basic and banal. She's got a bit of her mood board here, but I'm sorry, but this is lame. That's so lame. And I think that's Megan's problem. She's going to be both out of touch and just repeating and regurgitating something you've already seen before, done 6 times better. And if she can't figure out, I think, how to make her brand unique and interesting, It's gonna crash and burn, especially if she can't tone down the luxuriousness, if she can't bring it down to the average Joe or Jane in this case level. She'll lose people. And I think it's pretty evident that that's probably where things are going to go. And so, guys, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about lamps versus overhead lighting. Is that the first concern when you are throwing a dinner party? Is lamps and overhead lighting that time honored debate? Let me know in the comments because I'd love to get your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Bye.